Your home is leaking a gas you can't see, and it leaves fingerprints. Open your kitchen's junk drawer. Grab the most silver-looking thing you own. Spoon, fork, serving knife, some fancy thing you never use. Now hold it under the light and find the bruise. That gray-black stain, the dull patch, the spot that makes the metal look tired. That stain is not dirt. It's a chemical burn. Silver reacts with tiny traces of sulfur compounds in the air and forms a dark skin on the surface. So your spoon is basically a sensor. It's quietly recording what's floating around you. Which is funny, because for most of human history, silver's job was to record something else. Trust. Not feelings, not vibes. Trust, you can weigh. When people stop trusting words, they don't become cynical, they get practical. They reach for something they can test, stamp, cut, and count without needing to believe anyone. That's silver. So this is not a silver price episode. No charts, no predictions. We're doing the timeless story, what silver actually does for a civilization, and what a civilization does to get it. And at the end, we're coming right back to that spoon, because that little bruise explains everything. Let's start with the stain. Silver doesn't rust like iron, but it tarnishes. The surface reacts with sulfur in the air and forms silver sulfide, which is darker and less reflective. That's why shiny silver slowly goes dull. It's not getting old, it's reacting. You rub the spoon with your thumb. The stain doesn't slide, it doesn't smear. It's not ketchup, it's the metal's surface changing. Now think about how that feels emotionally. It's slightly annoying, slightly gross. Like, why can't this just stay nice? That emotion, right there, is the beginning of monetary history. Because when silver becomes money, everyone wants it to stay nice, clean, honest, standard, the same weight every time, and it never does. So people invent systems to keep it clean. Mints, stamps, assays, reeded edges, punishments, laws. Basically, polishing cloths, but for an economy. If you've ever watched someone polish old silverware, you've seen the ritual. They sit at the table before a holiday, rubbing metal with paste until their hands turn black. Not because the paste is dirty, because they're pulling tarnish off the surface. That's maintenance. That's what the standard costs. Now imagine doing that for a whole country. That's why money and violence keep holding hands. Because once value is physical, control becomes physical too. And silver is the most famous, physical value metal in human history. But it doesn't start in a vault. It starts in rock. Picture a mountain that looks like it's been bitten. High in the Andes, there's a city called Potosi and a mountain called Cerro Rico, Rich Hill. For centuries, it was one of the greatest sources of silver on Earth. Not because it was pretty, but because it was productive. Thin air, steep streets, a cold that feels sharper because you're high up, dust that sticks to sweat, and tunnels, endless tunnels, going into a mountain that people treated like a bank account. This is the part most silver stories leave out. Silver is hard money, but it's hard because someone had to break stone. Someone had to haul it, someone had to breathe it. And once you get the metal out, you do the next step. You turn messy metal into a clean unit. You mint. A coin is an argument you don't have to have. A coin says, this amount is real. This weight is the deal. The stamp is the authority. The weight is the proof. And the goal is simple. Strangers can trade without needing to trust each other's personality. Silver coins became the language of trade for a reason. They travel well. They're recognizable. They can be tested. And when a certain silver coin becomes common enough, it turns into something close to a global passport. One of the most famous was the Spanish 8-real coin, often called the piece of 8. Now here's the detail that makes the whole thing feel like a pirate movie, except it was normal life. People cut the coin into pieces to make change. Imagine paying for something cheap, and the shopkeeper looks at your big silver coin and goes, "No problem," and then, without blinking, splits your money like a pizza. That's where bits comes from. 8 pieces, 2 bits, 4 bits. Coin on a wooden counter, a hammer and a chisel, a clean tap. A wedge skitters across the table. Nobody gasps. Everybody just continues the day. And here's another mundane detail that matters: the edges. If a coin is just smooth metal, people can shave it, clip tiny slivers. Do it enough times, and you can steal a lot without it being obvious. So mints started using patterned edges and other tricks to make tampering visible. Because again, the moment you create a standard, you create a scam. So zoom out. When silver becomes common, a loop forms. Silver comes out of the mountain. Silver gets refined and minted. Coins cross oceans and borders. Coins buy goods where coins are trusted. Coins pay taxes and wages. Coins get hoarded, stolen, melted, reminted, clipped, counterfeited, buried, found, and moved again. That loop is global trade before tap to pay. And it's not romantic. It's logistics. Ships, guards, ledgers, weights, stamps, violence in the background to keep the lane open. But the loop has a shadow. Because once silver is the bloodstream, the people who control mines, mints, and routes control the system. And the system always grows two side jobs: policing and cheating. Policing. Rulers enforce the standard, run assay offices, punish counterfeiters, redesign coinage, and make examples out of people. Cheating. People do it anyway. Shave, fake, dilute, forge stamps, smuggle. Silver doesn't cause the cheating. It just makes the incentives visible. Because a silver economy is brutally simple. If you can steal weight without being caught, you do. And the moment ordinary people suspect the weight isn't real, trust collapses. That's why silver isn't just money. It's a social mood made physical. Now, here's where silver gets even stranger. Because silver is not only about weight, silver is also about light. Walk to your bathroom mirror. You look at your face. You don't think about materials. You just think, yep, that's me. But a mirror is a technology, a smooth surface plus a reflective metal. Silver has long been used because it reflects light extremely well. A thin coating can turn ordinary glass into a sharp, brutally honest image. You lean in. The mirror shows every little detail you didn't ask for. It's not flattering. It's accurate. Accuracy changes people. Because once you can reflect reality cleanly, the next step is obvious. Can you store it? Can you freeze reality? That takes us to silver's most magical job: photography. Classic film photography uses silver halide crystals. Light hits them. An invisible change happens. A latent image. Then the developing chemicals reduce the exposed crystals to metallic silver, and the picture appears. You're literally turning light into metal. Think about how wild that is. A birthday, a war, a wedding, a face you'll never see again. All of that gets trapped inside a thin layer of chemistry, and then you can carry it in your pocket. That's not just art, that's evidence. And once you can store images, you can build systems around images: IDs, newspapers, court exhibits, insurance claims, documentation, surveillance. Proof becomes portable. And power loves proof, because proof can protect power or threaten it. So again, silver doesn't pick a side. It gets picked. A family photo album and a surveillance archive can be made from the same basic chemistry. Same element, different intention. Now for silver's third job, the one you live inside every day: electricity. If you want electricity to move efficiently, you want a metal with extremely high conductivity. Silver is famous for having the highest electrical conductivity among metals, which is why it shows up in electrical contacts, coatings, and conductive paths where performance matters. And here's the funny contradiction. When silver was money, people hoarded it. When silver is used in machines, we smear it thin across the world. We put tiny amounts of it inside: switches, relays, connectors, printed circuits, coatings, contacts you'll never see. You flip a light switch, click. You unlock your car, beep. You plug in a charger. That satisfying little snick when it seats properly. Those moments feel like software. They're not. They're physical contact, metal touching metal, making electrons behave. Silver is the quiet overachiever in the boring parts. Now look at a drawer full of old electronics, dead phones, old chargers, a graveyard of gadgets. That pile is basically silver treated as a consumable ingredient, spread out in tiny doses and forgotten. This is one of the biggest mindset shifts in modern civilization. Coins are meant to circulate and survive. Gadgets are meant to circulate and die. Same metal, different world. And there's one place where you can see silver doing the electricity job very clearly: solar panels. A typical silicon solar cell needs metal contacts, thin fingers and bus bars that collect current. A common industrial method uses silver paste, applied by screen printing, and then fired so it forms working electrical contacts. In plain language, we paint silver onto sunlight machines, so electrons have a clean road to travel. So silver turns light into something useful twice. First, by reflecting light and helping store images. Second, by helping move the electricity that solar cells generate. So if you had to summarize silver's role in civilization in 3 words, it's this: settlement, proof, connection. Settlement, silver as money, agreement you can weigh. Proof, silver as images, reality you can store. Connection, silver as electricity, flow you can trust. And every one of those has a dark side. Settlement creates winners and losers, and people fight over who gets to settle. Proof creates surveillance and manipulation alongside truth. Connection creates speed and dependence can be exploited. Silver doesn't have morals, it has properties. Now here's a twist that makes silver feel even more like a character in the story. A lot of silver is not mined because someone is chasing silver as the main prize. A lot of it comes out as a byproduct when companies mine other metals, like lead, zinc, copper, and gold. Silver rides along in complex ores and gets recovered during processing. So silver is often a passenger. That means the physical flow of silver can be tied to decisions that don't feel like silver decisions at all. Base metal mining, refinery capacity, what ore is economical. Again, it's not just about value, it's about the plumbing. And that brings us to the real point of this story, why silver is such a perfect civilization metal. If you want to understand how societies actually work, don't start with slogans, start with constraints. A coin that can be weighed, a stamp that can be recognized, a film that can store light, a contact that conducts without failing. Civilization is a pile of boring jobs done at scale, and silver keeps getting hired because it's freakishly good at the boring jobs. It's workable enough to shape into coins and fine parts, conductive enough to move electrons, reflective enough to handle light, and historically, scarce and valuable enough that people take it seriously as a standard. But good at the job has consequences. When a society depends on a material, it builds around it. Mines, routes, mints, assay systems, standards, laws, punishments, and it builds myths too. Stories about purity, permanence, real money, true value. Then reality shows up. Coins get clipped, standards decay, evidence gets manipulated, devices get trashed. Nothing stays clean for free. Okay, now I promised we'd come back to the opening. So go back to the spoon, hold it up again. Look at that bruise. That blackish stain is silver sulfide, the metal reacting with sulfur in the air. It's silver recording the environment. And that is the whole story in miniature. Silver is always reacting to the world around it. When the world is stable enough to trade, silver becomes coins and moves through routes. When the world needs proof, silver becomes a surface that holds light. When the world builds machines, silver becomes tiny roads for electrons. And in every case, silver is doing the same thing your spoon is doing right now. It's turning invisible reality into a visible mark. So the next time you see tarnish, don't just think gross and reach for polish. Think, this is the system talking. A civilization is not an idea. It's a set of physical promises we keep renewing, coin by coin, contact by contact, image by image. And like that spoon, if you stop maintaining the promises, the black stain comes back. Every time. Close the drawer. Tomorrow, it's still there.